National Teachers Union dismisses the effects of lockdowns on kids. Yeah, what's a rash of child suicides when weighed against teacher demands to be paid for not showing up and teach? I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start with the most powerful person in education, arguably, the head of the American Federation of Teachers, a piece of work by the name of Randi Weingarten, as she claims that lockdowns will ultimately have no lasting effects on kids because kids are resilient. Randi? Does that include the suicides, Randi? Does that include the kids who've cut themselves? Will that be including the kids who put themselves in early graves with shotguns? What about the scientific organizations who've come out and said that there's significant trauma attached to this, that children aren't doing well? What about the CDC and the WHO, who both said, get back to work? How about them, Randi Weingartner? But no, you're a shill for a teachers union. You're a multi-million-dollar a year salary-getting complete factotum for union teachers and not for children. And I will say, before we even begin, shame on you.
So Randi Weingarten, because schools aren't open, she's got all the time in the world, so she decided to sit down with Dan Primark of Axios. And Dan asked a simple question, do you think we're already past the point where the kids are going to basically not have an education, that it's not recoverable? Here's what she had to say.
Is there a point in which kids have been out of physical in-person school for so long that the education that they've lost isn't really recoverable? That the third grade, the fourth grade, the kindergarten they lost, they can take extra semesters in the summer, but it can't really be fixed?
No, I don't believe that. I believe that kids are resilient and kids will recover. But we as adults have to meet their needs, their emotional needs, their social needs, their learning needs. And that's who America's educators are.
What a freaking joke. On the one hand, kids are supposed to be resilient. So kids are super strong, and they're not going to be upset. They're not going to be depressed. They're going to get over this. Yeah, we lost a bunch of suicides, but the rest will get along fine. Meanwhile, the teachers, her teachers, are unresilient. They can't show up and teach. They can't be there. They can't be there to teach. They can't be there to help the kids. So we expect the kids to be resilient, while the teachers hide and cower at home behind their prophylactic plastic screens and don't have to get their hands dirty. On the other hand, we're told about kids being resilient, right? Kids are so resilient that they'll handle the trauma of this, that they're not going to have any lifelong scars from this. They're not losing out on anything important. Well, if that's true, how come you don't point out their biological resilience, Randi? These kids don't get sick from COVID. These kids are too young to pass COVID on to others. It doesn't happen. So you talk about their emotional resilience when they're depressed all over the place, and every psychologists are talking about this left and right, that we're doing something really nasty to these kids. You'll talk about that kind of resilience, but you won't talk about the biological resilience, right? That little kids don't get this disease, this virus, and they really don't spread it. What kind of a ridiculous statement is it that you're trying to sell us?
Well, she had more to say. She included also that that's who America's educators are. That's who America's bus drivers are. That's who America's paraprofessionals are. That's who America's food service workers are. And we are pained about what has happened in this pandemic. The crises that have enveloped our kids, our communities, ourselves. But at the end of the day, we have to believe that this is recoverable. So you got to have that hope.
Just believe without evidence. Hope. Typical liberal party of science, right? Believe without a shred of evidence.
And we have to believe that virtually, I don't know if she means like virtually, yeah. See what she did there? All of our kids will thrive with the opportunities that we have put before them. Now, can we just take out the word kids or students in any of this and say teachers, adults? So it would be, I believe that adults are resilient and adults will recover.
Well, you know what? The bus drivers are resilient. The food service workers are resilient.
Paraprofessionals, America's educators. Right? Yep, that's all the ones.
You know who's not resilient? The teachers.
Well, she said America's educators.
Yeah, but they're not.
Well, according to the CDC, as we've known, children's mental health-related visits to emergency rooms are up by as much as 1/3 compared to 2019
Resilience.
Figures. And J.D. Friedman, a clinical psychologist, said that children predisposed to mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, or OCD, the lockdown of schools can absolutely tip the scales to full-blown pathology. Think about that for one moment.
What kind of coward projects resilience on tiny little kids while asking none of it from their teachers or their administrators? When you think about how childish this is, we expect our little kids are resilient. Well, why do they have to be? Why do they have to be more adult than the adults? Why do they have to shoulder the burden more than the teachers do?
I know.
Yes.
Because all they teach is social emotional learning. So the kids have been taught since the first day of school that they are resilient. It's all about their emotions and being resilient and learning how to overcome and fight the system. But they don't know how to read or write, but they know how to overcome. So that's why they are resilient, because the teachers did their jobs. So this is the way of Randi saying, good job,
then
teachers.
Maybe somebody ought to teach the teachers
exactly
social emotional teaching strategy.
And this comes as no shock to anyone, but San Francisco and this comes as no shock to anyone, but the San Francisco schools, home of Nancy Pelosi, see a learning gap that's widening during the pandemic. It's widening. I thought it was all about closing those learning gaps because black kids and white kids, the learning gaps. But now the pandemic has caused it to widen. In late January, actually, the San Francisco Chronicle detailed a report about how minority kids and those from low-income families have been academically harmed by the pandemic more than wealthier white students. Now, the school lockdowns seem to have a worse effect on these children's education, according to the data that was released by the San Francisco School District. I can't believe they actually, unlike New York, they, I guess, released data that maybe is accurate.
Yeah, well, if it's coming from the San Francisco schools, I'd be very hesitant.
So think it's even worse than what they're actually reporting. Okay, well, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, Black and Latino students were also more likely to be absent at least 60% of the time during the fall semester. So you're saying all fall, 60% of Black and Latino kids were MIA.
Hey, Miss Weingartner, maybe you should look Black and brown skinned families right in the face. Go ahead and say, be more resilient, be more white, be more white. I don't see that happening, Randi. I just don't see it happening.
Well, Weingarten, she's probably still crying over the fact that she also did not get to be nominated officially and then become the education secretary. So she's probably really peeved at Nancy Pelosi for not helping her as hometown girl kind of thing.
That's right.
Anywho, the report comes after the CDC released guidelines detailing how schools should be reopened across the nation.
Wait, the CDC said that it's more important to open the school than to pretend kids are resilient? And you mean Weingartner and the teachers union?
Weingarten.
Weingartner. Does it matter? Does she even pay attention to this, Weingarten? Does it bother nobody that, you keep claiming that you have the statistics on the side? You don't. The world's looking at you and saying, quit being children. Go back to work.
Let the children be children and adults stop being children. It's a crazy world we live in, but we're going to get to that in the instant classic. Anyway, remember just, I think a week, 2 weeks ago, just in this very short period of time, the new CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, actually was the one who said, go back to school. And then the Biden administration and Jen Psaki at her job came out and said, no, she was just speaking in her own personal capacity, and I'll circle back on that one. But Rochelle Walensky had the CDC banner all behind her saying, I'm the CDC director, and get the kids back in school.
Yeah, and Dr. Jill Biden.
Oh, the greatest of all doctors.
Yes, she's an education doctor.
Education doctor. They are the best.
It makes my PhD in English look like a MIT physics degree.
I'm just a master over here. Doctor, master, but if you're a doctor,
look, if you had a master's degree.
I'm a master.
In hemorrhoid lancing.
Ooh, I should.
You'd still have a more intellectually rigorous degree than they have in the education departments of this country. Nevertheless, Dr. Jill, remember when we were told that the Biden administration was going to fix this? That they were going to immediately do right everything that Trump was doing wrong, that they were going to get the schools open? No.
Well, Randi Weingarten should have listened to this California school board and cheered them on, because she's all about the teachers' unions and the adults, and I'm putting that in loose little quotes, in the room. Like when they try to make fun of all the parents who just want their kids to be in school, and then, oops, school board, you actually were threatening your parents on an open call that they kind of heard about, and now you must resign. And that's what exactly happened for the Oakley Union Elementary School Board of Trustees. It's funny to me that there's an elementary school board of trustees,
not just
like
a school board,
it's
an
a school board
elementary school board.
Board of trustees.
And look at the wonderfully mature people they put on that committee.
And they don't know what we do behind the scenes. And it's really unfortunate that they want to pick on us because they want their babysitters back.
Are we alone?
Yeah.
If you're going to call me out, I'm going to you up. Sorry, that's just me. Uh-oh. Laura Lanier, just FYI, you guys have the meeting. Oh, we have the meeting open to the public right now.
Nuh-uh.
That's what Laura just said.
Big, tough talking committee members, right? You come after me, I go F you up, honey, right? And is nobody bothered by the fact that she went into full black mode right there? And I love the story, right? The first woman actually admits that teachers are babysitters. They don't care about us, she says. They just want their babysitters back. This is what your school boards think of you, America.
Yeah, so the fact that they weren't also drinking out of their wine glasses, because that's a classic California weekend brunch with your girlfriends type conversation.
I'm surprised.
What you just heard there.
We've got another one in the news today. I'm surprised no one was caught masturbating in the back of that picture.
I don't want to
when you think about
know.
what's going on in the school.
But it wasn't just the ladies who had their little comments to say about if you're going to call me out, I'm going to F you up. We had one of the male members talk about, smoking some weed
dope
during the day and how it's problematic then if the schools reopen.
Yeah, play that clip.
Play it.
My brother had a delivery service for medical marijuana. The high clientele were parents with their kids in school. And so when you got your kids at home, no more Friday.
So he literally says that too many parents are getting home delivery of cannabis, right, for medical purposes. And when you got your kids at home, the reason they want the kids back in school is so they can all smoke fatties. That's what they think you're doing, Mom and Dad. You're sitting around smoking fatties, waiting for your government babysitters to come back and take over their classes. To the surprise of anybody, they all resigned. They couldn't figure out that the technology was indeed going out to everybody, and everyone, to a man, to a woman, to a stoner, they have all resigned.
Well, yes, but first they had to have backlash.
Yes, they did.
And then they had to cry about it behind the scenes. And so the president was the first one to resign. Lisa Brzezinski was the first. And then all of a sudden, oh crap, the rest of us should follow. And so they released a statement. Board members Kim Bede, Erica Ippolito, and Richie Masadas asked that the following statement be shared with you, the community. We deeply regret the comments that were made in the meeting of the Board of Education earlier this week. As trustees, we realize it's our responsibility to model the conduct that we expect of our students and staff, and it's our obligation to build confidence in district leadership. Our comments failed you in both regards, and for this we offer our sincerest apology.
Then they expect you to believe that, quote, we love your students, right? The ones that you don't want to have to see, the ones that are just babysat, that kind of thing. The ones that are only in your classrooms because mom and dad are spleefing up. We love our students, our teachers, and our community. And we want to be part of the remedy to help the district move forward, returning to its full focus of students' needs. To help facilitate the healing process, we will be resigning our positions. Well, they got that right. There can't be healing with that crowd. But this is not, this is more the norm than it is the exception. It's this idea, right, that you only want your kids back in school to torment the teachers. That's the only reason you're selfish. Not that you're paying tens and tens of thousands of dollars every year in property taxes to get your parents back, tens of billions across the country. That's not all. The fact that you're paying all that money to get your kids in school, the fact that kids are, as we saw in the earlier segments, hurting themselves. The WHO has said, basically, psychologist groups have said, get your kids back. You're sitting there quietly at home mocking parents and mocking kids. Well, at least they all stepped out.
And if you wanted some more just craziness coming out of California. We have it because there's been more improper use of these online meetings or, schooling, if you will, in California. So we have parents of students enrolled at Pleasanton Unified School District, which is about 40 miles east of San Francisco. San Fran, Nancy Pelosi land. It's crazy out there. Anyway, they said that some of the district's teachers had used time during their Zoom classes one day to basically tell students and kind of persuade them, if you will, to not return to in-person learning.
Go ahead and lobby your kids for your selfish bastards, right? Rather than welcome the kids, give them a little optimism, give them a little hope, say, hey, guys, we're going to be together again soon. You use your time with them to lobby them to turn on their parents. Really, this is what you do.
If you want to go to school for social reasons, recognize that you absolutely will not have that. There's no question that you are not allowed to interact in any fashion. You cannot work with a partner. You cannot speak with anyone in your class if they are any closer than 6 feet away.
On a public Facebook page, several Pleasanton parents say at least a few other teachers made similar comments to their students. Strong words that made some kids think twice about going back to class at all.
Essentially, I'll have my desk sort of taped off in an area, and I can't really leave that area.
Yeah, so totally Nurse Ratched, right? You think I got news for you, you snot-nosed little bastards. If you think you forcing the state to send us teachers back in to teach you, you think you're going to have a good time? You think you're going to be able to socialize with your friends? You think you're going to have recess all running around? You think you're going to have warm, crinkly tater tots at lunch? I'm here to tell you as the teacher, you ain't getting none of that. I'm going to lock myself behind my prophylactic condom bubble. You're going to sit in seats 6 feet apart, and you're going to have masks on, and you're going to have shields on, and we're going to have hazmat suits on you, and we're going to have breathing with you with the respirators. You ain't going to have no fun. You come back to my classroom. Book it.
You let me know in the comments, how many different accents did you hear in that last little
Diversity
rant? I'm not
is
quite
our
sure.
strength.
I got like 3.
I went from angry white guy to angry black guy in
Southern,
really
there's
short
like a Southern
time. Diversity.
Tater tots.
Diversity.
Though. But if this isn't the best advertisement for why you should homeschool, I don't know what is. Because I thought, well, I can't homeschool. My kids need to be socialized. How are they ever going to interact with other kids if they're at home? Not interacting at the school. Well, the school's saying you will not get to interact. You will not get to talk to your friends. You will not have any fun.
Can you not, speaking of can you not realize, how can you watch this and then still be excited to send your kids back? I get it that your kids need the stimulation, but you can provide this. All these kids are at home right now who are not doing their classrooms live. There's no reason, once this cools down a little bit, you can't find social opportunities outside of the classroom. But look, these teachers, these school boards, these union reps, this whole show has been about this. They don't like your kids. They don't feel any sense of responsibility for your kids. The burden of adulthood and resilience is the burden of the children. It is not the burden of the teachers. What makes you think sending these kids back to their classrooms, what makes you think that these teachers give a rat's rip about your kids' education?
Now, just as a point of information, the article did say that some teachers were excited to go back to the class, but they didn't give any examples nor quotes. So
no, they didn't. Because what is going to happen if the one teacher goes out and says, I don't know what my colleagues think. I can't wait to hug my kids. That teacher would be I guarantee you would be out of a job next year.
Well, it's time for some real education, and this week it's all about Dr. Seuss, his immortal words. And we have cancel culture here, so basically cancel culture has now set their sights on banning his work. Well, Dr. Duke, what do you have for us today?
Yes, this is Dr. Seuss week on the Dr. Duke Show, because if you've been paying attention to the news, last year there was a bunch of stories about canceling Shakespeare. This year there are stories in the news about canceling Dr. Seuss because, there are racial implications in his stories. The left cannot find any real racism, but they're suggesting there are racist implications without really defining them. And so here we are, and I've created my own little Dr. Seuss rhyme for you. They may can him and pan him, but the tykes always know that silly old Seuss is a friend on the go. You can twist him in knots and lie about his plots, or cancel his sneeches like race-baiting beaches. But Seuss will endure despite race pimps, for sure. So if truth's what you seek, join us for Seuss all of this week. And here is our actual quote from Dr. Seuss. This is the kind of stuff that Dr. Seuss said and wrote that your kids now can't see. Because, he didn't create black and white characters. All his characters are all these different colors. They're not even really human beings. They're starbelly sneeches, right? They're Dumbo elephants. Nevertheless, because he was a white guy who's popular, the American left says we can't read him. Okay, this is what you're depriving your kids from. Quote, "We are all a little weird, and life's a little weird. And when we find someone whose weirdness is compatible with ours, we join up with them and fall in mutual weirdness and call it love." Yeah, I get it. He's white and male and really popular and made a lot of money entertaining kids. But this kind of sentiment, right? That people are different and it's okay to be different, and when two different people find each other, maybe they fall in love for different reasons. That's a horrible message for little kids.
All right, if you're a fan of the show, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation to support our Patriot Club, and we're going to send you our signature tumbler as a thank you. Visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And just a quick reminder to please download our brand new Freedom Project Media app. Every week, you're going to get access to 17 new shows, and you're going to get our library of content that includes in-depth interviews, lecture series, educational animations, and so much more. All you have to do is download the Freedom Project app in your app store and make sure to allow for notifications.
And that wraps up this show. Now make sure you download the Freedom Project app. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.